Assalamualaikum to my lecturers, Dr. Abdullah Hatik, and my fellow friends. My name is IZZAT bin JAPAR. My matrix number is 33DPC20F2003. Today, I do a simulation virtual labs for experiment severity of quenching. The objective of this experiment is to study the hardness of medium carbon steel samples and their microstructure under the following condition: a near, normalized, water quench, ice quench, and oil quench. We use a lot of apparatus. For example, is carbon steel samples, furnace, tongs, and etc. This is a description of eutectic temperature, quenching, and metrosite. Now, let's move to the first step. For the first step, we must obtain identical samples of medium carbon steel and keep one sample aside as a control samples. These 6 samples: annealing, normalizing, water quenching, ice quenching, oil quenching, and control samples. And let's move to the second step. For the second step, we must alternatize all the 5 samples for 30 minutes at 910 Celsius. The first thing, we must on the furnace and set the temperature until at 910 Celsius. And we put all these samples in the furnace. And close the door, and we wait to about 30 minutes. And we switch off the furnace, and let's move to the third step. The step is to remove the samples from the furnace and quench them in different medium. For the first sample, we put in oil. For the second one, we put in water. For the third one, we put the samples in brine. The fourth one, we put at the room temperature. And let the other one samples in the furnace to cool until 400 Celsius. And we put the samples at the room temperature. For notes, we must cool the samples to a room temperature. Now, why is the sample alternatized for 30 minutes is to uniform alternatization. And let's move to the next step. The next step is to obtain a flat surface on a specimen by using a bed grinding. Okay, let's move to the next steps is support a polished paper of 1/10 fineness at a flat glass plate and polish the specimen rubbing in forward direction only. Okay, let's move to the next steps. Finish the polishing by specimen on 4/0 abrasive paper. You must wash hand and the specimen. And click this, and they use the polish for us. And let's move to the next steps. For the step 7, we must do the fine polishing on the disc polishing unit. We click this to put the alumina solution to the polishing unit and start polishing. Turn on the disc polishing unit. For notes, after the fine polishing, clean off the polishing surface of the specimen with water and dry it with an electric hot air blower. Let's move to the next steps. For the next step, etch the specimen with 2% nitrile reagent by swabbing for a few seconds, wash them and dry. For your information, nitrile reagent is nitrile is the name of the given to an oxidizing exchange solution composed of aqueous nitric acid and ethanol. We click this and put and we swab on the samples, and let's move to the next step. For this step, we examine the specimen under the microscope and observe the structural features. For a nail, this is 100 times, 100 times, and this is 400 times. For normalized, this 4 times zoom, and this 100 zoom. This is ice quench 100 zoom and 500 times zoom. Oil quench 100 times zoom and 500 times zooms. And last, water quench. This 500 times zoom and this 100 times zoom. Which medium give the most severe quench? For me is ice brine. Okay, let's move to the next steps. For this step, after donating the microstructural features of the samples, we must perform the Rockwell hardness test using the cone indicator for all the 6 samples. Okay, that's for this step only, and we move to the 11 steps. For this step, we must the hand wheel is turned until the specimen is in contact with the indicator and the pointer of the smaller die gauge, which the red dot, so that minor load of 1000 kg is applied. We click this and we adjust the specimen height. Okay, that's all. And we move to the step 12. The major load is set and the motor is switched on. The hand lever is kept in the lock position for 15 seconds. The reading is not down using C scale. We turn on the device. Load. And we wait until 15 seconds. And that's all for this step. And let's move to the next step. This the value for all the 6 specimens. We have six samples and 6 quench method. For all the samples, we use the same total load and scale use. For the first samples, for the normal one, the Rockwell hardness number is 15. For the anile, the Rockwell hardness is 37. For the normalized, the Rockwell hardness is 41. And for the fourth sample is ice quench, the hardness number is 60. And the fifth samples, that is using a oil quench, the Rockwell hardness number is 55. And the last but not least, the sample 6 use the water quench method, the Rockwell hardness number is 51. As I remind you for the second time, for for all these samples, we use the total load and the scale use. Now let's move the next step. This for the observation of the samples. Observe as relate the microstructural features and the obtained rock wool hardness number. For this, let's view the samples for a Nile 100 times, and this for 500 times. Normalize 100 times, 500 times. For ice quench 100 times, 500 times. And for oil quench, this is the 100 times microstructural, and this is 500 times. For the water quench, this is the 100 times and 500 times. Okay, that's all for me for this simulation. Thank you for the lecturers, and goodbye. Thanks.